Hey, what's up guys? Morty Gilden. If you're a fan of Samyang glass, the lens in front of you should be familiar. This is their 85mm f1.4, and this is the Vivitar version of that lens. As you know, Samyang is an OEM for a few different lens companies, including Rokinon, Vivitar, and a few others, as well as their own name. You can also find glass directly under the Samyang label, but it's a little bit harder to find. So this is their 1.4 version of the 85mm lens, and I heard a rumor that Vivitar is coming out with some new lenses, but they're not using Samyang anymore. So I reached out to them and asked about it, and turns out, sure enough, this is the old version of their 85. Here's their new one. It is no longer made by Samyang. They found a new company. All I know so far is that it's a Chinese company. I don't know who they are. Right off the bat, you can see that it only opens up to 1.8 instead of 1.4. The other thing I noticed is that the shape of it is kind of funny. This whole thing, the top here, as soon as I opened up the lens hood, lens cap, I'm sorry, I can see that the whole front of it is just a hood. And if you remove this, the lens is remarkably small compared to the Samyang one. So that got me thinking, you're losing a stop of light, but what is that? I mean, that can't be all that makes this lens so much bigger, that extra half a stop. Turns out in the manual for the lens that it comes with literature, it says in the troubleshooting section, if you get some dark edges around the corner of your frame, to try putting it on don't use it on a full frame body, which implies that perhaps this lens is designed for an APS-C camera, not for a full frame, whereas the Samyang is made for a full frame. Now, I was unable to confirm that. I don't have a full frame body here to try it with, but I did ask someone else to try it for me, and they told me that on a 5D Mark III, it did look pretty acceptable. They didn't see any noticeable vignetting or anything like that. So I don't know what this story is. If you were to try it on a D800 or a 5D Mark III, maybe the edges are a little bit darker. I can't tell on mine. On an APS-C camera, they both perform pretty well, honestly. I took some pictures outside at different apertures. I found that at wide open, that the newer Vivitar, the 85 1.8, actually was sharper wide open than the Samyang was at 1.4. But I also figured that's not a fair test because one's at 1.4, one's at 1.8. So I stopped down the Samyang a little bit to around 1.8, and still the Vivitar wide open was a little bit sharper. But then when I stopped it down a little bit further and went down to f4, then the Samyang really shone as being much sharper, less fringing than the new Vivitar lens had. So I guess all in all, if you're looking for something lighter and smaller for your APS-C crop camera, I think the new, whoever this new company is that Vivitar is using, they're pretty decent, especially if you're shooting wide open. The Samyang is still a solid contender though, if you need that extra stop of light. It's a more solid build, and when you stop it down, it does get sharper. I don't know if I can say which one's better. It's a toss-up. I do find it interesting that Vivitar is no longer using Samyang. I wonder what other lenses they're going to come out with from this Chinese source, and if other people also are going to start using sourcing other companies.